It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend.
They used to call him a music mogul, a kingmaker, and one of hip-hop's biggest success stories. But yesterday, that image started to fall apart. Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, took the stand and shared shocking details in court. Diddy's face went pale as she spoke. What she described was so disturbing that even experienced courtroom reporters were stunned. The man who once had full control over a music empire couldn't hide his reaction as Cassie revealed everything that allegedly happened in private.
Walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
For years, Sean Diddy Combs was seen as a powerful figure in the music industry. He built Bad Boy Records from the ground up, turned unknown artists into stars, and expanded his brand into fashion, alcohol, and media. On paper, he looked like the perfect success story, a man who turned hip-hop into big business. But that polished image is now falling apart. As Cassie Ventura took the stand in court, she described a very different reality, one filled with disturbing details that shocked everyone in the room. While Diddy appeared in public as a smart, successful businessman in custom suits, smiling on red carpets and magazine covers, Cassie says behind closed doors he was someone completely different. The contrast was hard to ignore. When Diddy showed up to court on day 2, he looked calm and confident, surrounded by top lawyers, even smiling as if it were just another business meeting. But that calm didn't last. Witnesses in the courtroom described how Diddy's attitude quickly changed just 30 minutes into Cassie's testimony. His confidence faded. He started fidgeting, first with his tie, then his cufflinks, then just nervously with his hands. Observers say he began frantically writing notes to his lawyers, passing them so quickly that one of them had to ask him to slow down. One reporter said it looked like Diddy was realizing, for the first time, that he was no longer in control of the story. Another said he looked physically sick. At times, he even closed his eyes like he couldn't bear to watch or listen to what Cassie was saying. And this was just the beginning. As the afternoon went on, Cassie's calm, detailed account of their relationship revealed even more shocking claims, so serious they could shake the entire music industry and damage the legacy Diddy spent decades building. The man who always shaped his own image is now facing a story he can't edit, spin, or control.
At some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse, in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. she didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it." And she said, "Oh no, well, it's not that." But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, "He would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down." She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there.
When Cassie Ventura took the stand, the courtroom went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone knew this moment was coming, but no one, not even Diddy's legal team, was truly prepared for what she was about to say. After staying silent for years, Cassie finally had her chance to speak, and she didn't hold back. She started slow, which made her story even more powerful. Cassie talked about meeting Diddy when she was just 19. He was already a rich and powerful figure in the music industry, and she was a young model hoping to break into music. From the beginning, the power imbalance was huge, and according to Cassie, Diddy used that power to control her. Her testimony built up like a suspenseful movie. First, she described how he always needed to know where she was, even showing up unannounced when she was out. Then she talked about how he controlled her career, allegedly threatening to block her music or ruin her chances if she didn't do what he wanted. She even said he installed tracking software on her phone and would call her minutes after she arrived somewhere, already knowing her location. Slowly, she said, he isolated her from her friends and support system until he was all she had. The judge had to stop the proceedings 3 times during this part of her story because Diddy couldn't control his reactions. He was shaking his head, whispering to his lawyers, and making faces the jury could clearly see. Each time, the judge warned him to stay calm. It was clear he was not used to being in a situation he couldn't control. Then Cassie did something that stunned everyone. She pulled out her phone and gave it to her lawyer. On a big screen, text messages and emails between her and Diddy were shown to the whole courtroom. Diddy looked shocked. The messages included what appeared to be apologies for violent behavior, threats about her music career, and words that went completely against the image his PR team had pushed for years. But that wasn't even the most serious part. Cassie then began to talk about physical abuse. She described being thrown against walls, pushed downstairs, and even being choked until she almost passed out, stopping only when she went limp. The courtroom was silent. Some jurors visibly reacted. One woman wiped away tears, and a male juror couldn't even look at Diddy after some of the graphic details. Even the most experienced reporters admitted they were shocked by how detailed and serious her testimony was. And all of this, Cassie said, was leading up to one final event, a hotel incident that, according to her, would blow the case wide open.
Relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm gonna be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's gonna be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice, or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
"I thought I was going to die that night," Cassie whispered in court, and the entire courtroom leaned in to hear her. She was describing an incident at the Four Seasons Hotel, something no one, fans, the press, or gossip blogs, had ever heard of before. This event had been kept secret for years, but now Cassie was revealing it all. She explained how she kept quiet out of fear for her career, her safety, and the belief that no one would believe her over someone as powerful as Diddy. But now, on the witness stand, she wasn't holding back. Cassie said that what started as a normal industry afterparty quickly turned into a nightmare. She testified that Diddy became furious when he saw her talking to another music executive. She described how his smile disappeared, how he grabbed her arm so tightly it left marks, and how he whispered threats in her ear, all while maintaining his calm, public persona in front of others at the event. The most shocking part was when she said Diddy dragged her through the hotel lobby to the elevators, even though she was crying and trying to pull away. She made such a scene that hotel security approached, but when the guard saw Diddy, he just asked if everything was okay and walked away, not even checking if Cassie was okay. Then, Cassie's lawyer showed the jury a series of photos she had taken the morning after the incident. In them, she had bruises on her arms, a split lip, and redness around her neck. The photos were not professional, they were shaky and taken in a bathroom mirror, which somehow made them even more disturbing. Cassie explained she took them because she feared no one would believe her otherwise. Diddy's legal team tried to stop these photos from being shown, claiming they weren't authentic, but the judge ruled that they could be shown, and the photos were displayed in the courtroom. The jury's reaction was telling. One female juror covered her mouth in shock, while 2 male jurors couldn't even look at the photos, turning their heads away. One juror in the back was frantically writing in her notebook, her hand shaking. This hotel incident was a bombshell no one saw coming. It had never been mentioned before in statements or filings. Diddy's team was clearly unprepared, and the panic on their faces was visible to everyone in the courtroom. Cassie also described how Diddy allegedly threw a champagne bottle at her head, missing her by inches. The bottle shattered against the wall. She testified that he went into a rage, destroying the hotel room, breaking a lamp, flipping a table, and punching a hole in the bathroom door. But the most disturbing part was when she claimed Diddy prevented her from leaving the room for over 48 hours. He took her phone and threatened her with consequences if she tried to call for help. As Cassie finished her testimony, the whole courtroom turned to look at Diddy, and his reaction would be the moment that defined the entire trial and possibly the rest of his career.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual, it may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now, but I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down on.
It was a moment no one in that courtroom will ever forget. Diddy, the man who built an empire by staying calm under pressure, completely lost control in front of everyone. The carefully crafted image of the smooth businessman started to fall apart, revealing a very different side of him. This was the guy who had spent years perfecting his public image, the calm, collected mogul who never showed weakness. But as Cassie's testimony became more damaging, his cool exterior crumbled. Court reporters, who had seen hundreds of celebrity cases, said they'd never witnessed anything like it. Diddy, who had walked in confidently that morning, slowly turned into a man who looked cornered and desperate. His legal team tried to calm him down, but it didn't work. At one point, Diddy slammed his hand on the table in anger when Cassie described an incident at his Hampton house. The loud bang echoed through the courtroom, and the judge had to stop the proceedings, warning Diddy he could be removed if he didn't control himself. It looked like Diddy might actually get thrown out of his own trial. Throughout Cassie's testimony, Diddy shook his head and mouthed, "That's not true," every time she made a damaging accusation. It was as if he forgot the jury was watching his every move. It seemed like a man who had never been challenged before, suddenly realizing he couldn't control the story. For the entire relationship, Diddy allegedly controlled every part of Cassie's life, but now she was telling her truth, and he couldn't stop her. He couldn't block her speech, he couldn't get security to remove her, and he couldn't use his PR team to spin the story. He had to sit there and take it. The real turning point came when Cassie started talking about threats Diddy had allegedly made against her family if she ever spoke out. Then, the courtroom was shocked when she revealed that she had recordings of Diddy making those threats. Cassie's lawyer played the recordings for the court, and Diddy completely lost it. He jumped up from his seat, shouting at Cassie, "You know that's not how it happened." His lawyers struggled to pull him back into his seat, and it took 3 of them to restrain him as he tried to talk over the recording. The judge called for a recess, but the damage was already done. Everyone saw Diddy, the man who built his career on being untouchable, lose control in front of everyone. Then, Cassie dropped a bombshell that nobody had expected. She had been secretly collecting evidence for years. She had text messages, emails, and photos, all stored in places where Diddy couldn't find or delete them. The courtroom went silent when Cassie mentioned she had text messages from other celebrities who had witnessed Diddy's behavior firsthand. These weren't just random people, but some of Diddy's closest friends and business associates, people who had seen things at private parties and backstage that no one knew about. Diddy's face showed how shocked and worried he was when Cassie mentioned these celebrity witnesses. His legal team immediately objected, but the judge overruled them and allowed the messages into evidence. As the messages were shown on the courtroom screens, Diddy's face turned pale. The messages were from a major rapper who texted Cassie after a Grammy afterparty, asking if she was okay. A female pop star had written to Cassie saying she had known Diddy for years and had never seen him act that way with anyone else. The most damaging were messages from a longtime producer who worked with Diddy, telling Cassie that he couldn't be around Diddy anymore after witnessing his behavior and that he had told him to get help. Diddy's own messages were also shown. In them, he apologized for violent outbursts, offered her money to make things right, and even tried to silence her with financial deals. The courtroom reacted strongly to these messages. Some members of Diddy's entourage, who had been sitting behind him that morning, got up and left the courtroom one by one, unable to stay in their seats as the evidence piled up. By the end of the day, Diddy was sitting alone at his table, with only his lawyers around him. The support he had walked in with was gone. The evidence Cassie presented had changed everything, and as the trial continued, it seemed like Diddy's empire, one he had spent decades building, was crumbling. Cassie didn't just tell her story that day, she might have just changed Diddy's entire legacy. The evidence, the testimony, and the recordings all told a story no one could ignore. The real question now isn't whether Diddy can win this case, but whether his reputation can ever recover from what everyone just heard in that courtroom.